threats at a proportion of their existence. A part of America's most trusted news team, the best political team in town, said that you hear more from extremists because moderates have stuff to do. And that guy's one of the leaders of the best political team on TV. Get ready, Jon Stewart. And so we have whatever success we have is because we've had this engagement through the years on CraigsList. In marketing terms, you'd say that we've been doing viral marketing for all these years. You know, we don't advertise. And that's actually an accurate and pretty good metaphor, given the way both biologic and computer viruses work. But the deal is we just think of it as talking to people. And that's worked out pretty well. Going beyond that, all we've done is brought online something we've always run our lives by as humans, forever. Penelope Green from the New York Times said a few years ago, CraigsList is a marketplace in the ancient sense, chaotic, unruly, and vividly human. And that's right. We're a flea market, so to speak. I only recently realized that my mom tells me that she likes going to flea markets, and you know, she buys something, but she's really going there to talk to people. That's why people go to the mall sometimes, and that was largely true of the kids until these electronic media started becoming more and more important. You'll hear me talking about that a fair amount. The message which I've recently revised to the kids, one request, is that I really do want them to stay off my lawn. Should I do it? Okay. But again, the observation I just made is nothing new. The marketplace has always been a place where people go to talk business and to talk socially, even do politics or whatever. The idea is that the Romans did it in the Forum, the ancient Greeks did it in the Agora. The souk throughout the Mideast is where people have gone to do business, but also to talk. What I'm saying is nothing new, except maybe for one difference. Face to face, when you're trying to talk to people, you're talking to your networks, friends, the people you work with, acquaintances, and you may know and chat with over the course of days or weeks. You may wind up speaking with a couple hundred people. And face-to-face communication is better than online, because when you're talking to someone, that's a much more intimate form than something online where you've got tone of voice, body language, and so on. But face-to-face communications doesn't scale. And if you want to reach lots of people, you got to use broadcast communication. TV, for sure, you know, reaches millions of people, tens of millions of people, sometimes hundreds of millions of people. And that kind of stuff does work. But new stuff has happened, and I have some casual observations. Again, speaking as a nerd about this stuff, I'll interject to mention just one more as I apart from talking about CraigsList, is that, again, I don't feel there's anything altruistic or noble about what we do. We're just doing what feels right, just trying to follow through on the values that we have, and just being really serious about that kind of thing. Also, at some point towards the end, I will be taking questions, and there are a couple mics set up, so get ready. Beyond that, as strange as it seems, my email address really is craig@craigslist.org. And if you do want to ask a question, afternoons Pacific time are much better than mornings when I have my heaviest customer service workload. The only mistake I've made giving out my email address was on The View, and aside from being frightened by Star Jones, by the time I got back to the hotel, by the time I got back to the hotel, I had 250 emails, followed by 100 more, and I did feel compelled to answer them. Next time I'll tell people I'll answer with a form letter. But again, I'm painfully aware of my ignorance. I mean, I'm not a marketing guy, not a PR guy, nothing like that. But I kind of feel like I'm in the center of the media storm. The whole landscape feels like it's changing around me, but since we have fallen into a comfortable pattern of engagement, that feels kind of comfortable, and I can look at what's happening around me, what's going on. I remember during my IBM years, people would differentiate marketing, sales, PR, advertising, and all that. And they would also sometimes tell us that customer service is a form of marketing. And actually, I agree with that one. I wish we would have practiced it more. But the idea is that all these fields, are now blurring together. I guess you can try to differentiate them, but they're all just different perspectives on the same thing. How do you engage with people? Sometimes how do you persuade them? So in everything I say, I just really, myself, don't have a way of differentiating all of them. But something that I have observed, again, is that normally, whether you call it branding or image work, perception, persuasion, it used to, for the most part, come from the top down. We'd hear it in TV from civic leaders, so-called thought leaders, whatever that means. It used to come from the top down. And, that works because face-to-face doesn't scale. But things started changing in a very small way when the internet was invented around 1450 by one of my nerdish predecessors, Gutenberg. And he invented the printing press, but that technology languished until one of the first very popular bloggers, Martin Luther, created the first killer app. And that did in fact spread virally and created some significant change through the Western world. When I go through this shtick, I also, by the way, mention the enormous change created by other bloggers. In the late 1600s, bloggers like John Locke, not the guy on Lost, but the Englishman, he helped create the British form of representative democracy. In this country, 1776 and so on, early bloggers used the printing press to create our own form of representative democracy. And that was like Ben Franklin, Thomas Paine, Thomas Jefferson. I'm focusing on this, I guess, because a lot of what we're talking about is not new. The internet, though, makes things different, because what makes things happen now is that the prior forms of communication tended to be one-to-many, or on a personal basis, kind of one-on-one. What the internet does is it provides a whole bunch of tools to us, which is pretty good because, frankly, even guys like me, whose social skills aren't the strongest, we can see that the traditional means of advertising or PR or persuasion of any sort that come from the top down, that's not working so well anymore. That is, truth is no longer generated from the top, at least when we're talking about large scale. I'm aware that forever we've always relied on our friends and social networks to tell us what's really going on. We rely on our friends for product recommendations and, for that matter, for political recommendations. But too much hype from the top, too much fake stuff has kind of poisoned that well. It's gotten worse in recent years because we've seen situations like we've seen so-called astroturf campaigns, fake grassroots campaigns trying to appear bottom-up, but they're not bottom-up, they're top-down, and people are getting better at sniffing those out. Me, I personally rely on the work done by the Center for Media and Democracy out in Wisconsin, because they're investigative reporters really good at sniffing out these fake groups. But a lot of folks, including the kids, are really good at figuring out when we're getting something reasonably honest and when it's not. By the way, I also work a bit with factcheck.org and their educational component, factchecked.org. They're building curricula for high school students to be professional fact checkers. If that ever catches on, that may change the media landscape in a really big way. But what people, including the kids, tell us, the millennials tell us, is that sometimes the only way you can get some fact-checking done for yourself, aside from talking to friends or going to fact-check or whatever, is to rely on your own experience and instincts, and to rely on a concept that I like to call, get ready, truthiness. And again, as you can tell, I actually am a big fan of the Stephen Colbert Show. I think I'm going to retire this now, if I can control myself. Remember, I really do suffer from that attempted comedy syndrome thing. But the idea is that all this is changing in ways that you do know about, that I think you've heard over the preceding days at the show in large part. People are using peer relationships to figure out what's true and what can be trusted rather than the traditional top-down methods. People are using self-organizing systems, which we see on the net, because CraigsList, in a way, has been a self-organizing system that people use to help each other out. We do so in the most mundane of matters, to help you find a place to live or get a job. Mundane but important. Sometimes, people use our site in a way that transcends the mundane. I'm pretty proud of the way that people used our site for Katrina, because what happened is that as Katrina approached, survivors let friends and family know through our site where they were headed. Friends and family asked for help locating other survivors, and this worked. A day or so after Katrina struck, people were offering survivors housing. And a couple days after that, people were starting to offer survivors jobs. And all this ain't bad. People repurposed our site to do that. And a success factor regarding that has been that we know when to get out of the way, which is not maybe a marketing lesson, but getting out of the way is important. That's why Jim is CEO, and that was, again, it didn't take me long to get out of denial as humans go, maybe only a couple months, which again is not bad. But you've seen some of the mechanisms which people are using for self-organizing. There's a lot of them which people are starting to use. I have started to use Twitter, and I can't say I'm twittering like a teenager, but I'm actually using it to get the word out. I have my own blog, which is cnewmark.com, and what I'll do is I'll use Twitter, frankly, to drive traffic to my blog. If you ever take a look at it, it's cnewmark.com. You'll see that I use it either to indulge my sense of humor or to promote the efforts of people who are doing really good work, people who are smarter than myself. I may get back to that a little later. But you also see stuff like I blogged what the girlfriend thought was a ferocious possum attack. But more recently, I actually captured a photo of the mammal involved, which I believe is referred to as a mouse. So it may be ferociously adorable at worst. But you see also people using the usual range of tools which you're familiar with: Facebook, LinkedIn, MySpace. These are things I'm assuming that you're using already. If you look me up on these, you'll see that my use so far of them is pretty half-assed, frankly. I gotta get better at it, because I'm using this stuff not so much to promote CraigsList, because it's kind of self-promoting, but I'm trying to help out people doing smart stuff, who are getting stuff done, but who need more buzz out there. Again, for me to do that as a nerd is possibly that crime against nature, but, we're in right now what I feel is a historic era in human history, kind of like 1776, where things changed dramatically, kind of like 1500, when Martin Luther used the church door to get out his blog, and after that, the church network, because they actually did have a pretty active network to get documents from place to place. In today's technology, we would call that store and forward, which is how email works. So big things are happening, I think, and the changes we see in communication are, let's say, helping out a change in human history like we've never seen before, and we're all part of that. Because Right now, again, there are a lot of other tools which people are using now to, well, people are starting to do the marketing or advertising mission for themselves. Our site, but there's a lot of product sites where this is happening. When you look at Amazon and you see product recommendations, that changes what your business is. The same is true of Yelp and a whole bunch of other sites. Best Buy has recently started doing this, and having spoken with some of them, this appears to be a big part of their strategy. The idea is that people are starting to do the advertising for themselves. Me, I'm quite fond of my TV-related gadgetry. Now I'll look at avsforum.com, where you'll see phenomena where people are actually getting together and helping each other out with products, and the people, the manufacturers who are getting real smart about this, they're sending their customer service people to participate in these online discussion boards where not only fans of products are helping each other out, but the people who are in customer service for these manufacturers are starting to work together and put things together and make things happen. And the deal is that the product fans and the customer service reps who believe in their products are marketing, and they're marketing maybe in the most persistent, effective way. They're doing so maybe one person at a time, a few people at a time, but boy, there's probably no more effective salesperson or a marketing person than a fan who loves their products. The Mac is a good example, although I'm more of a John Hodgman guy than a Mac guy, if you're familiar with those commercials, which I think are great. Although I think they're great because of John Hodgman, who, by the way, is part of the best political team on TV as part of the Jon Stewart show. But what I'm thinking here is what I've observed directly is that in the past, maybe the unit of advertising maybe was a display ad in the newspaper, maybe a commercial on TV, maybe a press release that a PR person sends out. And those are still going to be pretty effective tools, I think, for a long time. But I am thinking now that the most effective unit of marketing, particularly to the millennials, to the kids, that's going to be the meme, M-E-M-E, or the idea virus, like the Fast Company magazine people say. That is, if you can get an idea out there that somehow sticks, that's going to be far more effective than anything. And that's, Victor Hugo. He did more than writing Les Mis and The Hunchback of Notre Dame. He also said that there's nothing as powerful as an idea whose time has come. And that's what we're seeing with the internet. We're seeing that, in my own experience, most in things like discussion boards. Just the kind of ordinary discussion boards which have been on the net, one way or the other, for 15 or 20 years. Because if an idea starts catching on, people will blog about it, and that will reach some people. People will mention it, though, in their discussion boards, and you'll see a lot of that happening. All the political campaigns are now using this kind of technique. They're getting people to go out and to put stuff in discussion boards. Frankly, part of my customer service duties involve moderating our discussion boards. And what I've seen in there is this kind of stuff, where people will promote their causes in comments in discussion boards. It takes a number of different forms. Sometimes it's just ordinary grassroots stuff, but I see stuff in there which at least I can do a little forensics. I mean, it's not CSI CraigsList, but I can do some tracking, and I can see some of this stuff is being done by PR or political professionals trying to do the AstroTurf thing. The honest grassroots stuff, which is honest in intent and facts, that's okay, but you'll see that kind of stuff in your own work. And you've probably seen it already if you're on the front lines in this manner. The problem is sometimes you'll see that people bicker and get nasty and really, really get ugly. Not just the spam, but you'll see bickering, or sometimes to the point of harassment. Oddly enough, I always thought that the political discussion board would be a problem, and it is. But the biggest problem I've seen is regarding discussions of pets and animals. People feel very passionate about issues related to animals, like should you be able to breed animals yourself and then sell them or not? And in one case, the bickering got so bad that the target of the harassment actually called in the FBI. And what happened was that, well, the harasser worked at a defense contractor, and that had some unintended consequences. If you get, by the way, in this, you'll have many new exciting adventures. I think 6 or 7 years ago, I got a call from the FBI asking us if I knew that there was an ad for plutonium on the site. And the punchline is that someone got a really stern talking to from his parents. But the deal is that what we're seeing now is that people on an amateur and professional basis are trying to do, in discussion boards and elsewhere, a little viral marketing. For example, frequently I see people saying, hey, have you heard about this new rock group? You know, or these guys are going to be at this bar, think you're going to go there, or have you heard about? And these are people doing very elementary forms of viral marketing. And you know, people don't seem to mind it if it's real. But if someone is acting as a shill, then they don't like it. And that's something that they ask me to remove. And actually I spend a certain amount of every day removing that stuff. And by every day, I mean every day. The idea is that there's this concept of information warfare. And people are practicing it now. And I have a feeling that's going to be part, an everyday part, of your lives as well as mine. There'll be disinformation. You see it in politics. We're seeing a lot of it now. But people are doing it on a product basis continuously. You look at product review sites, you look at Yelp, and you'll see that if a person has a restaurant, there are cases where people have been caught shilling for the restaurant or sometimes bad-mouthing the competitors. I have some tools to detect when this is happening, but it's going to be a bigger and bigger factor in the lives of everyone here. And that's something which you'll get to enjoy. The one possible solution for this will be in those sites which exploit crowdsourcing, large numbers of people. Because if you do get together, if your site is being used by tens of thousands of people or hundreds of thousands or more, there are more good, trustworthy people out there than there are crooks or shills or whatever. Some people feel that by numbers, that may obviate the effect. The first place we're seeing that is Wikipedia, where Jimmy is actually doing a good job with his teams of trying to figure out how to fight off disinformation attacks. But those attacks do happen. Sometimes they're played for laughs, like by Stephen Colbert, but quite frequently people do shady things. People in Congress have been caught modifying their entries. If it's honest, that's okay. If it's dishonest, not so much. So that's what we're seeing. But the idea is that we're also seeing one other big change to this landscape we all now live in. And I've been talking about the kids. In my head, either anywhere from 0 to 24 or to 30. You can decide for yourself. I can tell you how I think about that by mentioning that I've recently told my niece that I don't think she should be dating until she's 30. And that does accurately capture my emotional state regarding that. But anyway, what we're seeing, if you read the sociologists and you read books like Millennial Makeover, they're talking about this new generation being very different than my baby boomer generation, because I'm square in the middle of that one. They say that the kids, well, they've grown up working with each other, collaborating, whether it's for serious purposes or gossip or whatever. The kids these days, they're really comfortable using these electronic technologies, instant messaging. They can maintain simultaneous conversations in IM and I find it difficult to maintain one. The kids, they say, are these digital natives who've grown up with this stuff, who are really comfortable with it. I'm really good at email, but like those articles say, email is for the old. And unfortunately, I've been reflecting on that one more and more recently. Remember the Grandpa Simpson bit. But there seems to be a change there. Something is going on. I'm now hearing that the kids are a new civic generation, just like my parents' generation, that's the generation that dealt with the Depression and then World War II. I'm actually challenging the kids now as I go around and speak. I'm speaking at youth voting events. I'm telling them that, hey, this civic generation is for real. I'd like them to bail out my baby boomer bud. And I'm actually telling them, hey, maybe it's time for the kids to become the next greatest generation. And I think I see that happening. We'll have to give it some more years for it not only to happen, for us to be able to figure out what happens. But this is a big deal. And, I would prefer to be growing increasingly cynical. But ever since I started doing this customer service work, my confidence, my faith in people has actually been restored and increased. And it ain't supposed to happen that way. I'm supposed to be becoming more cynical, but it's not working as effectively as I thought. In fact, one of the other effects of this has been that I've now started getting into the promotion business in the sense that I'll stand up now for people who are doing good stuff for other people, not do-gooders, because I'm really tired of do-gooders in the sense of people who mean well but don't get stuff done. So what I've done is found groups who are capable of doing, these are small groups trying to do really good stuff for small groups of people. For example, I'm heavily involved in voter registration efforts, strictly nonpartisan, but there's a lot of kids on campus who don't know where they should register, campus or home. So there's groups online who are helping them figure out, where do you register, how do you get an absentee ballot if you need it. Because I've been telling the kids, get off my lawn. But now I'm telling them, get off my lawn and vote. And I'm hoping they found that funnier than you did. But in any case, one last time. But I'm telling them this, and they actually seem to be listening. Here I am a nerd, but yet now I'm working with a number of veterans groups to help out veterans and their families once they're back in this country. I work with the Iraq and Afghanistan Veterans of America. We had a victory recently, passing the new GI Bill. Now we're working on getting veterans better medical benefits, working with groups which do things like supporting wounded veterans, because if you're medevac for Iraq, you're leaving all your stuff behind. And if a group can help you get some stuff to replace the stuff you lost, that ain't bad. So here I am again as a nerd, working on these things, getting a few things done. It ain't bad. Helping people that I never thought I'd help when it comes to voting rights. I'm on the advisory board of Voto Latino, helping them get out the voting right for people who sometimes are afraid of registering to vote. People are here legally, but they're frightened of going to City Hall. If you look hard enough, you'll see that I participated in a Voto Latino telenovela. It's a public service announcement where I play a cameo role with Rosario Dawson. And if I'm not mistaken in the language of Hollywood, cameo I think means starring. But in any case, what we see now through the net, people are connecting in a lot of ways. People are connecting to spread the word on what matters to them. People are connecting to create their social networks. And from my point of view, a social network is your web of trust. These are the people that you rely on. These are the people you get opinions from. This is the way I think things are working right now. We see it when it comes to products, to manufacturing. We see people using the social networking stuff just because it's an extension of the way we normally get together with our friends and so on. Just a couple nights ago, I recorded a little video, which was a recollection from an old friend who's retiring from IBM. The punchline is that while his name is Bernie Schwartz, He was once paged as burning shorts, and I videoed that, which is on YouTube, so there's no privacy left in that matter anymore. So the deal is that big things are changing. You already have major hints on this. You already know about a lot of the tools that people talk about. You probably attended sessions where people are showing you there's use of them. I've been doing this for almost 14 years. The message is simply that this stuff works. It means you got to be committed, you got to be continuously engaged, maybe not as crazed as I am, and the girlfriend gives me periodic updates on that, but it is for real, and beyond our work, there are social lives, and there are people who need a hand, and what we're about maybe is following through on those shared values and changing things. I talk about nerd values, meaning once you make enough to be happy, and maybe provide you for your future, then it's time to change things. And let's give each other a break, and let's see what we can do about that. Folks, thanks, I appreciate it. Again, my email address really is craig@craigslist.org. There's microphones up there if you have any questions, and I'm not rushing away. Trying to decide if the guy is about to ask a question or just leaving.
Face-to-face, one-on-one with business partners. And how do you give any advice to give people on how to deal with the other 98% of people who don't understand so well?
I'm sorry, the last part was with what?
How do you deal with the other 98% of the people who generally maybe don't see eye to eye with nerds on certain issues?
Well, the deal is that while I'm doing customer service, I'm not really speaking as a nerd in that sense.
But business partnerships.
Oh, okay. When I'm talking with business partnerships, because there's people who want alliances or deals with us, I just remind them of what we're about and let them know it's not a fit. And people will get that because typically people have done some research on what we're about and they know that our model is a little different. And people kind of know this, and people also are willing to give me a break, because I'm not speaking so much in business language. I'm just speaking to them like they're people. And speaking to people like they're people is always a good idea.
Hi, I was going to ask if what's beyond CraigsList? Are there other directions like Craigs 2 and other ways that you think you might expand your brand?
In terms of CraigsList, what you're going to see is more of the same. More cities, more languages, and better customer service, because that can never be good enough. For me personally, the thing is, we do one thing well, we don't want to screw it up. For me personally, I'm going to promote these other causes, because this is where people are giving each other a break. That feels right. And again, that'll keep me busy enough. I will be doing customer service to some extent, only as long as I live.
Thank you.
I have a question about I'm interested in your opinion or thoughts about this. A couple of months ago, there was a really interesting editorial in the op-ed section of the Wall Street Journal about the policing that's going on and how that affects freedom of expression and opinions, in that in a way it can make everything look vanilla. What are your thoughts about that and freedom of expression?
The idea is that our site, CraigsList, is self-policing to a large extent. The idea is that if you see an ad on our site, which is wrong for some reason, you can flag it for removal, and if other people agree with you and flag it, it's removed automatically. And that works okay. We need it to be better. We've recently made some strides regarding that. I guess we got to do more. But that's the issue throughout the whole net. You have to make a decision as to how open your site is. Will a person commenting, say, on your discussion board, will they have a persistent identity? Do you have some confidence that it's really them? This is a big issue, not only for our discussion boards, even for politics, because congressmen tell me that if they get a mass email campaign, they're going to ignore it. But if they get one email from someone they know is a constituent, who probably is, they will listen to that one. So the deal is that self-policing is working, but persistent user identity and authentication is a big part of this, and all of us will have to make decisions over time as to whether or not the site is completely open, with anonymity, where you got to identify yourself to some degree.
Yeah, hi. You don't see any banners or anything posted on your website, as you said, as 0.0, 0.1. Where does that revenue come from, and how does it get generated?
How do we pay the bills, basically? We charge for job ads as of today in 18 cities. It's way under market price. Charge apartment brokers in New York City for apartment ads. Again, in New York, real estate is a blood sport. That's it. Again, that's enough for us. Jim runs the company pretty lean.
My question is, what are the most active sections of CraigsList and the least active sections in terms of traffic and usage?
Typically, the most active sections are, I think, jobs and housing, followed by for sale stuff and personals. That's the last time I looked at it. I don't look at the least trafficked ones. I don't know how to answer that.
What are some of the typical customer service questions or requests that you get?
The ones that I get specifically, which may not be representative of the rest of the team, are people wonder why their ads were flagged away. People sometimes email me for a suggestion as to what might be better in their ad, although I'm usually not much help there. People will email complaints to me when they feel they're being harassed. Sometimes, frankly, I get emails from cops, but often those are ones wondering if I'm for real, if I actually exist. Because we actually do get some of that. Typically what happens is that, we'll get calls or emails from cops. We'll help them out fast. We do so, I need to assure people, respecting due process and, the rights of the accused, because we act as if as if constitutional rule of law was still in effect.
I've heard a lot lately about Twitter. I mean, it's ongoing. I've heard about it for a long time, actually. But why should we use it?
Why should we use Twitter? It's an intimate form of communication, often, from one's point of view, one to many, because that's the way you can get the word out to people. Let's say you might start with your own social networks and maybe get beyond that. It's a slow growth thing. It may be effective in your circles and maybe not. A few months ago, at a little conference on the Sea of Galilee, Robert Scoble, who is a very popular blogger, convinced me to use Twitter. And it's been very, very effective in getting the word out in a lot of ways, including, it's gotten a lot of traffic to my blog, cnewmark.com. And again, look on the right-hand side, you'll see I'm pushing something called Donors Choose, which helps people help teachers fund classroom projects. I'd like to go now, donorschoose.org. But the deal is that Twitter can be used pretty effectively depending on the audiences you're trying to reach. It's worked for me. And if Scoble hears this, well, we shared a room on the Sea of Galilee, and I'd like to remind people, including Robert, that what happens in Galilee stays in Galilee.
If you had to do it over again, what would some differences be? And who are some of your heroes?
How would I do things differently? Fortunately, on my part, this was all a happy accident. I did make some blunders running the entity, which I can't go into detail, but let's say I would listen to people more, particularly lawyers. And my heroes, to some extent, that would be like Jimmy Wales from Wikipedia, and let's call my spiritual advisor, Leonard Cohen, who's the singer and poet, but that's a long story, so I won't start.
So, did you ever imagine this would be your life?
Oh, I had no clue that things would work out this way, and it's very surreal. It's occasionally flattering, But after an act of flattery, no, I just got back to work. Because there's no way I want to believe my own press. At some point they're going to stop me, but I haven't seen anyone yet.
Maybe you have answered already this question, but I want to ask more clearly. When you started this CraigsList, did you actually started it to make money or just came out from social service something?
Why did I start things? It was just a hobby for several years. You know, at some point I realized that I had to get serious about it. I was committed. That means making it into a real business. That was 99. Hey, well, folks, thanks. I really appreciate it. And I've got one more. And remember to tip the waiter as well. Thank you.
Thank you, Craig, for a terrific and thought-provoking presentation. On behalf of DMA, I want to thank all of you for coming to Las Vegas and getting connected with the greatest global event for marketers. I look forward to seeing everyone next year in San Diego for DMA 09. Thank you and safe travels.
Springs eternal on a guided neon street that I cared of. It's been the best.